All right.
What does it say?
All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for everybody who is joining us on the webinar platform and everybody who is streaming live from our Facebook pages. I'm really excited to have this conversation that started on Monday in regards to nutrition and mental health. The whole month we've been looking at mental health and physical fitness, and this week the focus has been mainly on nutrition. I've come across a lot of very wealthy information in regards to food and specifically mental health. So please join me as we welcome our panelists so that we can learn more from them. I'll just start with how my grid looks. So we can start with Angie. Please introduce yourself, and then we go to Stacy.
Good. My name's Angie Yoder-Mina. I'm the Executive Director of Green String Network, which is an organization that works regionally on trauma-informed and healing-centered programming at the community level and also at the Kenyan Police.
Thank you, Angie. Let me ask you, what did you have for lunch today? This conversation is about nutrition.
I had a kefir smoothie that had bao and protein powder and strawberries, and it came from my own kefir that I make, and we make our own kefir every week, so we have good gut bacteria. So I had a kefir smoothie.
Wow. That's so perfect. I see you really deserve to be in this panel. You're taking that very seriously. Stacey, you're the nutritionist in this conversation. Yeah, tell us about yourself.
Thank you. My name is Stacey Wamboi Moria. Currently, I'm a clinical nutritionist interning at Nanyuki Teaching and Referral Hospital. And just to answer your question, I had rice, dengu, very small portion of rice, some dengu, green grams, and spinach.
Wow. Well, okay. Thank you guys for joining us in this conversation. As I'm having this conversation and asking my panelists about what they ate, it's because I've just been having coffee all day. I'll probably eat at 4. So why is nutrition important specifically for mental health? First of all, do you even think, is it important? Have you guys ever thought about it like from that angle?
I mean, I think about it all the time, and it's come from a lot of the reading. I've also had periods of my life where I've drank coffee all day and all night, and it hasn't been a good thing. And as you get older, you start to understand that you have to actually take care of yourself better. And I've actually done a lot of reading around gut health and kind of the microorganisms and gut health in the gut, and how that actually impacts our mental health and impacts people's depression and anxiety and other things that come out in the mental health piece. And so our stomachs are kind of the gateway to our brain because of how the brain actually is connected through the vagus nerve all the way down to our stomach, and they're very connected. And so for me, I've done a lot of reading about this. I put a lot of weird things into our family's diet because of the reading that I've done. My children are always like, ugh, why are we eating this? Can't we just eat like a normal family? My husband is like, that's not Kikuyu food. You know, like those are the things that we talk about, but you know, like We all have really healthy amounts of baobab because it's actually something that we can get here. And it's a huge superfood, and it's actually really helpful in being able to process our food and to make sure we can actually process our vitamin C's and all of those things. And my family's always like, but can't we just have like what everybody else has? But for me, serotonin helps, and it helps with the serotonin, and it helps regulate our sleep and our appetite. It regulates our moods. And it helps even with when you have pain, physical pain. So for me, that's all a part of our I guess, I don't know, our what is that called? Gastrointestinal tract. Yeah, there you go. I'm not a nutritionist. It's a part of our gastrointestinal tract. There you go. That's the word. And it's like, it's helped lined with our nerves, and it goes up to our brain. And that's one of the things that food helps regulate our emotions. And for the longest time, emotional well-being wasn't seen linked to our food and our stomach, but that's now in the last 10 to 15 years. There's so much research about that makes me really excited. I'm a nerd about it. And I love nutritionists because I'm always asking lots of questions and finding out the new things to do.
Literally, my mind is really blown away. We really wanted to have this conversation specifically with a layman and a clinical nutritionist, because I feel that it's important for people to understand how much they can be able to learn about certain things just by doing research or going to the net and trying to find out what more can I do in my own capacity, even if you cannot afford to go see a nutritionist. And what you're telling us is really mind-blowing, guys. And if you're listening to this, please do not forget that the stomach is the gateway to the brain. All right. And when we're talking about wellness or mental wellness, we are factoring in our moods, how we feel about ourselves. That also translates from the thoughts and also ultimately to the behavior that we have. So if you are in a position to actually be able to control that from the basic level, which is just observing what you eat, then you're already halfway there into being in charge and being in control of your mental space, which is your biggest asset. All right. So, Auntie, thank you so much for starting this conversation with so much fire. Right? Stacey, you're a clinical nutritionist. I don't know, like, as you're going through this, when you're studying to be a nutritionist, do you look at the mental health part of it right directly from school? Or is it something that you came across when you started working?
It's something largely that I came across when I started working, because mostly in school, they teach you how mental health affects nutritional status, okay? How mental health affects how you're losing weight. It affects how you binge eating. It affects how you really crave, carbs, or you really crave really salty things. That's what they tell us. So when I started working is when I started realizing that there's actually much more on how nutrition affects your mental status, which is very interesting, to be quite honest. I'll just share an experience that I had recently. There's a time when we were doing a presentation, and it was my turn to do the presentation. And before that, I had read somewhere that when you eat a banana, it actually calms you, okay? And I was like, all right, let me try this out. So I ate the banana, like, let me say about 30 minutes before I began my session. And quite frankly, I was shocked by the amount of calmness I had during the whole entire period of time.
Wow.
And that is when I started questioning, there has to be much more that nutrition plays, the role that it plays in our mental health. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Actually, I genuinely did not know that eating a banana can be able to calm you down. So if you're watching this, just know you will never know everything. Every day is a learning opportunity, for sure. But there's something that is so important that Stacey has mentioned. And most of the time, what she's saying is that right from school, what she learned is how mental health affects how you eat. And even in the clinical setup, when you're doing investigative functions, which is something that I briefly mentioned when we were doing the chart, is that we look at your behavior in terms of your feeding patterns. So basically, the reason why we are doing that is because it will inform us, like your state of mind. So we are looking at it that way. But what we are going to learn today, and what is the key emphasis of this conversation today, is because I want people to know that they can be in charge, right from making the decision of what you're putting into your body. We are absolutely what we consume. And people like me who take coffee all day, we need to be more intentional. We need to be more intentional about protecting our mind, all right? And maybe just going back to what Stacey has said, throughout your experience, other than, I love that you said, that is still in my mind, that a banana calms you. Other than that, are there other foods that you have come across that actually contribute to somebody having like a better mental space or feeling good about themselves? Are there specific foods that you feel are very good? I can see Angie smiling. We are coming to you.
Yes, actually, there are very many in different food groups. We have them in carbohydrates, where we have things like complex carbohydrates. This kind of complex carbohydrates are actually very important in giving you very nice bursts of energy in the morning when you wake up. You know, when you take the oatmeal, you know, and you sprinkle some chia seeds, which have very, very amazing omega-3 fatty acids, and you take that with a banana or a strawberry. All this, they really help the 4 major neurotransmitters, which are usually, you know, basically transmit the response from one neuron to another. So we have chia seeds, we have flax seeds, we have avocado, we have, as I said, some complex carbohydrates, unrefined grains, meaning unrefined wheat, unrefined rice, unrefined grain maize. We have beans, we have things that contain zinc, complex B vitamins, we have beef, we have liver. And all this, I want us to focus on this. When I'm talking about taking things like beef, things like dairy, if you know that you have probably a problem that may require you to eat smaller quantities of that, please do. I'm not encouraging people to just like feast on such things, especially if they have a lot of fat and a lot of bad fat. So just take them, but take them in moderation. And if there are cases or things that you cannot acquire, we have so many nutritional supplements that you can get in regards to those particular vitamins and those particular nutrients. Yeah.
Stacey, that's really perfect. Actually, every time I go to the supermarket and every time I look at like different diets that people post online, I see a lot on chia seeds and flax seeds. And for the longest time, I've been thinking people just don't take these things to lose weight. So some of the foods that you have talked about, thank you first of all for that information. But I want you to kind of help that common wananchi, all right? Because it's almost 70% of us guys, Kenyans, maybe would not afford to go and buy a packet of chia seeds or flax seeds at 500 or 400 shillings, or even supplements, all right? Let's talk about some local foods that would be good or people can be on the lookout for to put in their plate to help with their state of mind.
Of course, yes, thank you. Just as I have mentioned, one of the things that we talk about even in physical health, which is as important as mental health, is that you should be able to have a very nutritious plate. Okay, we have this plate guide, which we're currently using from WHO, which it says half of your plate should be filled with vegetables. Now, for mental health, we're talking about vegetables like spinach, which are very, very high in vitamins like folate. We are talking about cabbages. We are talking about, mostly those are the main things that usually can be found easily by the common mananchi. And then we have your carbohydrates, which is rice, as I mentioned, anything that is not really refined, any unrefined grains. So we have rice, we have unga ya ugali, grade 2. We have unga ya ngano. We have all this ndoma. I don't know how ndoma is called in English. Arrowroot, thank you.
Yeah.
Sweet potatoes, we have normal potatoes. On this other hand, for proteins, we have things like beans, which are very, very available. Any kind of beans. Green grams, we have peas, that's minji. We have meat as well, beef. We have liver, we have kidney. We have things like, basically the eggs as well. Basically, a very good, adequately nutritionally balanced diet, okay, should be able to help you achieve that.
Thank you so much. And obviously not forgetting water. Angie, you
Yes.
have done a lot of research. I saw all that information you put on our Twitter. Just to add on what Stacey has given us, what else have you come across in regard to foods that help with mental health?
So one of the easiest things that I actually recommend to everyone is turmeric. And turmeric actually reduces inflammation. And it isn't just inflammation in our body, we actually have inflammation in our brain. There's a great book. I have it. If you want to borrow it, come and find me. It's called The Angel and the Assassin, the tiny brain cell that changed the course of medicine. Donna Jackson Nakazaza or something like that. This has basically, she talks a lot about food and how we eat and how we have to not only reduce the inflammation in our body that causes pain, that same inflammation is in our brain. And those are the things that where the body inflammation causes disease and illness and cancer, the brain inflammation is now starting to cause depression. It cuts our memory. We stop having the memory that we need. And turmeric, which is cheap, we can all use it. It's in every little tiny supermarket. You can put it in with your beans and your jogo and whatever you have. I actually take it usually most mornings with lemon. Turmeric, I usually put some coconut oil in there. I throw in baobab into everything. I ice it up because I'm from the States and we take ice. You guys could probably take it hot. But it's one of those things that reduces inflammation. And I got chikungunya about 2 years ago, and it's really in my joints. And this is one of the things that I found, that when the chikungunya joint pain was there, I would be feeling low. And it was very much connected between my joint pain and my energy level, or my ability to say, okay, today I'm going to get up and do what I need to do. And when I started taking, and it's called the singing canary every morning, when I take that, I just start my whole day off on a very different place. And it really goes into the turmeric. I give turmeric to my old dogs because their joint pain is hard. So, so turmeric is like,
I can see how you would do that.
So turmeric, and you can pack it in with a little bit of coconut oil. All of these things are things that are here in Kenya. They may not be necessarily a part of our everyday lifestyle. A singing canary, until I started having such terrible joint pain from the chikungunya virus, I didn't do it. Now I do it every day. And what I found is it doesn't just and inflammation in my joints. It's now actually helping and I'm understanding, after reading The Angel and the Assassin, I'm having the inflammation in my brain.
Wow, guys, I really hope you're getting blown away that I don't even need to pay school fees for this kind of information. This is amazing. Yeah, just to add on to what Angie has said, and Stacey has given us very good compositions of food that we can get locally, things like the managu. And I think that's why they say people in shag settings are kind of healthier, because these things are locally available in the shambas. And what Andy is saying, I'm also a super big believer of turmeric. We don't even do, like, medicine is like worse. It's the last scenario. When the kids are coughing, turmeric and honey. When somebody can't sleep, turmeric and milk. Everything is just turmeric. And you're right, we do it hot. I think Africans generally are just allergic to cold. There is no way I can have it with trash. I think that's like adding more homa. I think that's how my thought process is. But I'm a big believer of it, but I have never really come across what you have talked about in regards to inflammation is not only physical, but sometimes it's also on the brain. So I've never looked at that angle, and thought of it that way, and also focusing on the fact that this little thing that is either on powder form or you can buy it. Actually, by the way, if you are in this conversation and you're wondering what that is, it looks like a D-shaped potato or like garlic, ginger. It looks like ginger, but it's more yellow, which can be ground, cut into small pieces, however you might like it. And I think you can get it for 5, 10, depending on the size that you want. That's something that you can incorporate in your body. And now that you know, this will also help in inflammation in the brain. I hope that you will really incorporate it for sure. All right. Stacey, I have a question for you. I don't know whether it's a myth or a fact, but I hear the composition of food in the plates that you said that people should only have carbohydrates the size of your fist. So I don't know whether that's true. So every time I look at my fist and I look at the size of my pilau, especially, or chapati, it's like 3 times my fist.
Yeah, I know.
Is that factual?
Yes, it's very layman, of course, because trying to explain to somebody, we use a plate method, and the plate method, as I mentioned previously, is that half of the plate should be full of vegetables and fruits. The other half you divide into 2. 1/4 is carbohydrates, and the other 1/4 is proteins. Okay, so that is basically it. But when you're explaining it to somebody else out there, you say that ugali toshane na ngumi yako. Like, those are the exact words that we use.
As in how, Stacey, how will a Kenyan man or even me in that wedding eat rice? This, as in my son.
I know.
Anyway,
that is usually especially for individuals who have probably weight issues or who have issues that require them to eat less carbohydrates. That is the particular plate guide method that we use for them. Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Guys, please don't forget to look for Andy to give you Angel and the assassin. Okay. I'll be number 1 on that list. Now, we have looked at all this good and healthy food, but let's take us through what are some of the foods that are actually dangerous, that pose a threat to our mental health. What are those things that we need to be on the lookout for?
Most of them, I think we know them. There's increased intake in caffeine, as you mentioned. So if you're taking coffee over and over and over and over and over again, it deteriorates your mental health. You start getting fatigued. You start feeling as if you don't really want to do a lot. And that really kind of borders you to depression to some particular extent. We have sugary drinks like soda, really sugary drinks, carbonated drinks. We have fatty foods or really fatty fried foods. We have, those are the main ones that I'd say, sugary, very refined things like potato chips that we get in the supermarket. Things like anything that is really refined and that has been added, things like MSG properties, just so many preservatives, I'd say, yeah? Canned beef, canned beans, sausages, all these particular things are what we call refined foods. So yes.
Tell me about the balance, because basically human beings try and maximize on pleasure and minimize on pain. So
Yes.
When kids are young, like for example in Angie's home, they are very lactose, their diet is going to be very good. But at some point in their life, they may be introduced to this world of, I can actually buy myself a chocolate fudge cake if I want because I'm not feeling well, and they want that instant feel good thing. So obviously you'll find yourself in a situation where you want ice cream, or you did a soda, or you junked on the sugary or savory stuff. Yeah. So how do you know how much is too much, or rather, exactly, how much is too much?
That's a very, very
good. A complete no, that we should never eat or have.
No, I will be very, very honest with you. It's very, very hard, especially I'd say this for women. We find ourselves craving a lot of minerals that we usually we don't have, and that we don't usually get from our diet, or we don't eat. So when we crave these things, of course, at some point the craving becomes so severe that you're like, I cannot, So we're not saying it's a no. We're just saying everything should be done in moderation. So if you're taking your fries, okay, just make sure that, especially if you're the one, make sure you're the one making the fries, make sure it's clean oil. If you're getting it from out there, of course, just once in a while is okay. What I'm saying is that anything, of course, in excess amounts is very, very dangerous. Yes.
Okay. And that's the issue. That's the issue with your coffee, because coffee in small bits is actually an what is it?
Antioxidant.
It's good for you. Antioxidant. There you go. Yes. And it's actually really good for your brain initially. It's just that if it's overdone, then that's the problem.
Yes. Yeah, because it brings in their alertness and their focus, to some
precisely.
Level.
Yes.
And oxidants actually act against stress and inflammation again. So the inflammation comes back in there.
Yes.
Wow. Oh gosh. Wow. Anyway, Angie, other than coffee, you guys, I really feel like you're on my case, but I know there are so many lovers out there. This conversation is for you and I. All right. This is something that I have been calling myself for meetings and having this conversation with myself. And yeah, I'm actually glad that I'm talking to a clinical nutritionist and somebody who has done a lot of research. So I hope this will give me emotional insight to want at least to take it in moderation. All right. Angie, what other foods maybe have you come across that are not very good for the brain?
So the big one is sugar. I call sugar the new smoking. If you could actually just cut sugar from your diet 100%, you would be doing yourself kind of the best. If you could stand more, walk more, and have no sugar, you would be actually adding years onto your life and years into your brain. Sugar is really evil. And I don't know anything else to say. Wow. And it really is, sugar causes inflammation. Sugar causes inflammation in our bodies. Sugar causes inflammation in our brains. Sugar is, and then the long-term pieces of, white rice, white bread, all of the things that aren't actually whole and kind of the grains that have come to us as they're supposed to. I love like the third level, the third grade ugali. Like, give me that and I'll eat it. Anything else, I'm like, why are you eating that white funny stuff? But you give me the third grade one that's come from the farm and we've put it to the posho mill ourselves. Like, you feel it. It's really, you can feel you're eating something of value. I think the other thing that we have to actually really ask our questions about is, where is our food coming from? and how this will actually impact us. And this comes into the issues of the pesticides that are going on our foods, the hormones that are being shot into our milk. So these days, my husband's a dairy farmer, so we know a lot about dairy farming. We know that the majority of our milk, the cow, it's not your Shosho's cow that you're milking on the farm and drinking right there. But the milk that's coming in and you're buying in the store, it has lots of hormones that are going into it. It has high levels of aflatoxin. It has a lot of cancer causing things, and these things will impact not just our physical health, but it will also impact our mental health. And I think there's more and more studies that show how pesticides are coming into our bodies and causing depression and anxiety and all of these different things, probably because of the inflammation that it causes.
Wow. Thank you. Now that you mentioned that, I'm reminded that there was a campaign going around talking about the same thing, I think either with Pinky or John Alanamu, where they were talking about the different pesticides that are being used in the food that we use for daily consumption and how dangerous that is. So the best thing is to try your level best and get food that is directly from the ground up over anything that is processed or refined. However, temptation is okay, just don't overindulge, and plant your food if that's possible, or get it from a local market or a shamba of people who you know that they have grown this food naturally. They have gone through the natural process. Somebody has joined us, and she's gonna tell us her name. And part of the reason why she's in this conversation is because she was telling me about this research she did about, I call it brain food, but I think it's mind food. Anyway, she's going to clarify that for us. So Pendo, karibu sana. Great to see you.
Thank you so much, Gathoni. My name is Pendo Ochola, and I am a learning psychologist. And just as Gathoni was saying, I was doing a research on the relationship between nutrition and mental health, and I came across this diet known as the mind diet. Gathoni just calls it brain food or something, but it's it's the mind diet, which stands for Mediterranean intervention for neurodegenerative delay. I think I got that right. And it's a combination of two different diets, the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. I don't know if you're familiar with that, to the nutritionists with us here. Yeah, and
please tell us about the compositions of both as you're expounding more.
Okay. For the Mediterranean diet, I believe that it is from the diet that people from the Mediterranean focus on, mainly, I think, white meats, mostly maybe berries, nuts, and then you have the DASH diet, which was established after a research on let me just read. The DASH diet stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. So a research was done, and they developed this diet to try and reduce the chances for hypertension. So other researchers now, they researched on what diet can, or the impact that diet has on our brain and how our brain works, and sustaining the power of our brains. So they came up with a combination of these two diets, the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet. And some of the components of this diet, or the foods that they encourage us to have, I'm just going to go through some of them. I'm seeing green leafy vegetables and other vegetables in general. I'm seeing an emphasis on white meats. I'm also seeing whole grains, nuts, berries, the use of olive oil. They're trying to move away from very refined oils. Oh, I'm also seeing that it is advisable to have wine, but
Yeah.
not more than 1 glass a day. That is very important to remember that. And talking of the foods that they're advising against, they're talking of butter or margarine. They're also talking of cheese, red meats, fried food, and just as Angie was talking about sugar, they talked about sweets in general. I think I'd like to ask our nutritionists to maybe give us the
Yeah,
insight on. Yeah.
I was going to shoot it to her. Stacey, have you heard about the mind, mind diet, and what compositions can we find locally?
I have not actually heard of the Mind diet, but I have heard of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, which we use for hypertensive patients. And one of the reasons as to why we limit the use of red meat is just to limit complications that are cardiovascular that come in from hypertension. So I don't know how much research has been done about red meat and the brain, so I wouldn't have much to say there, but I would do my research on that. However, everything you have talked about there is very, very, very important because they have very important, as I mentioned before, vitamins. They have very important micronutrients that are very essential, and unsaturated fatty acids that are very, very essential in, yet again, neurotransmitting. I was told not to use any big jargons, so I don't know how Gadoni will help me tell them about neurotransmission or what exactly happens, in the brain, because I know you guys are better off equipped to tell us about that. But it helps a lot in neurotransmission, and that particular DASH diet is very, very important. One of the main components of a DASH diet is limited salt intake. I think they say about 2.3 grams per day. I don't know if that's the same thing they put on this other Mind diet kind of thing, because salt, I think they use lithium carbonate, which is a salt, to treat suicidal thoughts, I'd say, depression, and any other manic kind of, things. So salt has very, very useful properties of anti-manic, anti-suicidal, and antidepressive properties. I do not know if they use the same particular diet or that about salt in the Mind diet. So back to you, Kadani.
Wow, thank you so much, Stacey. Things keep coming my way. I'm telling you, this is a free class for sure. So basically, I think what Pendo is just saying is that the Mind diet is a combination of both the Mediterranean and the DASH that she has explained to us all so well, and Stacey has just put a stamp on top of that. Let me take it to Angie first in regards to neurotransmission, because Angie is just like a powerhouse of information. And I want you guys to hear it as well from a layman, so you don't think other people do not know these things. Right, Angie?
Yes. So our brain is always turned on. It doesn't go to sleep. And that means our brain is constantly in need of fuel. And that fuel comes from the food that we eat. And that fuel will make all the difference. And if our food is in the right it affects the structure and the function of our brain and ultimately our mood. So our brain is really connected to our mood, that is then connected to how that comes out of us. And like, for example, people have shown that if you eat a lot of fatty fish, so there's a lot of issue about Western Kenya and the fatty fish that they eat a lot of, they'll have more gray matter in their brain, which helps again with the emotional processing, but also helps you be able to, put all the pieces together and seem really smart and intelligent. But if you deprive your brain of that good nutrition, and you just eat sugar and eat salt and eat white bread, you're damaging and you're inflaming our cells. And it isn't just the physical cells in our bodies. And for many, many years, doctors, even the brain doctors were saying, oh, that's just for the body. But what we've now started to see, that those things now inflame even our brain cells. And when our brain cells, because our brain, you know, our bodies can grow back and forth, we can get bigger and smaller. Our brains can't. Our brains are held by our by our skull. And so our brain, if it's inflaming in an enclosed space, that's where we start to injure brain tissue. And that is when we start to have those kind of consequences. That's what I've learned from the angel and the assassin, which I'm going to keep repeating because every person should read it. And so for many years, like I said, the medical field didn't even acknowledge kind of that connection between mood and food, but all women knew it was true. We knew when we were feeling bad, we wanted that sugary piece.
Absolutely.
We knew we wanted the salty piece, you know, like we understood, but nobody was listening to us. And then finally the science has caught up with us, and we've started to learn that. But like, so the neurotransmitter, it really comes in, and it's around hormones. So it's the serotonin, it's the, you know, it's the adrenaline, it's the cortisol, it's all of those different things that are transmitting through us. And it doesn't just transmit through us in the brain, it's actually coming all the way up and down. Our vagus nerve goes all the way up and down from our stomach. So like I said, that stomach is the gateway to our brain. And for years, we kind of put psychiatrists and the brain study and neurobiologists over there because you just dealt with the brain. But, you know, the other doctors were dealing with the rest of the body. And in the last 10 years, the study has actually showed we're actually one whole person. And what happens in our body, it goes into also our brain. And that's where neurotransmission really starts to happen. And it will impact how you feel physically if you feel in pain, or how you also feel if you're feeling happy or calm or satisfied, or you're feeling sad. These things will actually impact that.
Wow. Oh my God. Thank you so much. So basically the neurotransmitters are just responsible, for lack of better words, sending and receiving information. And that information will be sent and received based on also what is fueling or what is going into your brain. Like Angie said, the brain doesn't sleep. Even when you're asleep, it's still awake, being in charge of all these commands here and there in your brain. So it's very, very important for us to nourish it with the right amount of food. It's also very important to understand that you as a human being, whoever you are as a whole, it's not just one thing. It's not just psychiatry, or it's not just the nutritionist or the GP. We are all responsible in regards to bringing wholeness into the human being. I have seen Kefa has joined us, but we are about to end this conversation. Kefa, karibu sana. We are talking about nutrition and mental health. You did participate in our Twitch chat on Monday. Thank you very much. And if you are watching this conversation in the webinar, please comment so that I ask the panelists questions. If you are joining us on Facebook, karibu, also just comment in regards to what you wanna ask any of the panelists. So Kefa, just tell us about yourself and just anything else you would like to add into the conversation in regards to diet, nutrition, and mental health.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Ninaumba Kefa, consultant nutritionist. I work with a number of insurance companies as a service provider. And I also happen to be one of the writers of the new curriculum. In fact, I'm an author with the KLB. So I'm really excited to be part of this conversation. So I've just joined right now. And we know that mental health is actually very, very important. It's actually a very interesting topic. we know that the number of nutrients that we need so that we can actually, hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry, you can hear me? Okay,
Yes.
there are a number of nutrients that actually that we need that are supposed to support our mental health. For example, we have nutrients like we have omega-3. You know that most of the products we have in the market nowadays have a lot of omega-6, and that is why we need to increase the foods that are rich in terms of omega-3. And we are seeing a number of people actually getting what you call vitamin D deficiency. In fact, the number of studies that are actually linking vitamin D to mental health. So that is why we need to ensure that we observe good nutrition, because it actually touches on our mental health. And as the previous speaker was actually saying, you know, our mind plays a key role when it comes to the normal functioning of the body. So nutrition actually becomes very, very important. Maybe to add something, in fact, the number of studies that have connected, you know, high cholesterol levels to mental health. And from my practice, I've seen a number of people getting high cholesterol levels, and that is why we need to begin when it comes to our diet, because once we're able to prevent some of these conditions, then we can be assured that we'll be able to manage most of the mental disorders we are seeing nowadays. Otherwise, I think as the participants ask questions, we'll be able to learn more on the importance of nutrition. I know you've covered a lot so far, but I should be able to give you more as we continue.
Kefa, maybe just before we go to the questions, are there foods that are an absolute no-no in your own experience? That are, which is also a question I asked the panelists. Mm-hmm. What foods should we like absolutely stay away from?
Okay, there are a number of foods, especially the refined starches. We are seeing a number of people adopting what you call a westernized lifestyle, which is, you know, full of foods that contain what you call empty calories, but they score poor in terms of nutrients. So, of course, I cannot forget to talk about caffeine. In fact, there are a number of studies that have linked, you know, caffeine and, you know, mental disorders. And those are some of the foods we should actually avoid by all means. And of course, we're also seeing a number of people taking, you know, foods that are known to have a lot of saturated fats. You know, today I was attending a patient and he told me that he cannot take any food without beef. And these are the kind of people end up getting conditions like cholesterol. And we know that right now, a number of people are going through stress. You know, a number of people are depressed because of COVID-19. And that is when nutrition becomes very important. So we need to control the food that have a lot of, you know, caffeine, saturated fats, refined starches, etc. Those are some of the foods you're supposed to ensure that we avoid, especially during this time.
All right. You talked about food with empty calories. I mean, the only thing as a psychologist that I know has empty calories is alcohol. What other foods have empty calories?
Of course, we have a number of. Sorry?
I want you to talk to the person who is either a student and they are watching this, or they are just there at home, maybe in the local Masambani, and they are wondering, what food has empty calories and what does that mean?
Okay, there are actually quite a number. For example, we know there are people who take, you know, unhealthy snacks. We are talking of, you know, biscuits, the sweets. I cannot forget to talk about the soft drinks that are known to have a lot of empty calories. In fact, you'll be surprised that, you know, soft drinks have the worst form of sugar. We call it high fructose corn syrup. And, you know, when you take some of these soft drinks, our body overproduces what you call insulin. So the time our cells start becoming resistant to insulin, and we're seeing a number of people getting diabetes type 2 because of that. So those are examples of the foods that are known to have empty calories, because, you know, when we take food, the purpose is for us to first and foremost get the nutrients. And of course, we know that nutrients work as a team to support the normal functioning of the body. So those are some of the foods that have empty calories that you're supposed to avoid, especially during this time.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So basically this, I mean, that feeling of you take something and then you get that feeling like you are satisfied, but technically everything that you've eaten does not nourish your body in any way or in any healthy way. So really, thank you, Kefa, for that. Somebody is asking a question in regards, anybody can answer, but they have said, I have heard that chocolate causes some feel-good effect or relaxation. If you may, what is the truth? that is from somebody in this webinar?
It needs to be very high quality, almost no sugar chocolate. So it's not the chocolate you're thinking of, the milk chocolate that you just buy at the grocery store. And again, it's the oxidoxins, whatever you call them. The nutritionists will say that. It's those things that then help with that, but it's not the normal, like really sugary sweet chocolate. It's a different type of chocolate, which I love now, but it's taken some time to get that very high grade chocolate. Like, okay, and you can really only take like a few bites of it. It's not something you'll take and like overeat of it, because it's just really too strong.
Wow. Okay, Kefa, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes. And to me, the concern would be, we know chocolates at times contains what you call caffeine. I remember I talked about caffeine. Caffeine affects us in a number of ways. It actually tends to make a number of, mental disorders worse. But we also know that it also affects the absorption of certain nutrients, especially calcium. So to me, it's not something that I can actually recommend for someone, because there are many ways we can assist you to, to achieve what you want without affecting the absorption of other nutrients.
Oh God. All right. You guys are going to kill Valentine's with this kind of conversation. But anyway, I hear you. I really hear you. Stacey, what are your thoughts on that question?
Well, chocolate is known to have, as he has said, caffeine. It's also known to have an amino acid in very small quantities, though, called tryptophan, which is very important in the uptake of serotonin, which gives you a more happy feeling, I'd say. So it might make you feel a bit happy, but just for a short time, which, of course, as Kefa has mentioned before, has very, very adverse effects to your body. So it does actually give you the highness or the feeling of high at some point. And it's also it's a comfort food, yeah? For those people majorly who, after a particular trauma, they run to chocolate. Every time that they take chocolate, unknowingly, it actually makes them feel better, because every other time after a particular kind of trauma, they would take chocolate, or they would take, so they might really associate it to feeling at home, or to feeling well, really. Yeah, so I think those are my thoughts on chocolate.
Wow. Okay, I'm really a big fan of chocolate. I've never really thought about it in regards to high grade and low grade. I just know the brands that I love. But anyway, this conversation is just about being very, very intentional in everything that we do, and especially in everything that we eat. There's another very interesting question, guys. Please allow me. I know we are running out of time. I'm a believer that if it doesn't taste good, then it can't go down. Are there any foods that still make you feel good but are healthy? Did you get that? So somebody is saying that they're a believer that if something doesn't taste good, then it shouldn't go down. So are there foods that are healthy but taste good? Stacey or Pendo, anything?
Okay, I'm not a nutritionist clearly, but I think it all goes in the preparation. There are foods that maybe on their own are not quite palatable, but after combining it with something else, it might come out differently. I once had a salad with lettuce, almonds, and honey. I believe those are, the nutritionists can prove me wrong, but I think those are healthy foods. But together, I'm telling you, I could finish a whole bowl of that salad. It was just wholesome and wonderful. I think it's all in how you prepare it. There's a very interesting take on how you prepare your meals. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I couldn't agree more. Angie? Mm-hmm.
I think it's also how you change your taste buds. Your taste buds can change over time. You may say, I only want this because this is how I've always had it, but you start to learn that it's not very healthy for you, that there's better ways to eat something similar, and you can start to shift and change. I now only eat sweet potato chips that are baked in the oven rather than fried chips. And over time, I now crave the sweet potato chips, where before I would have craved the chips. And so there's ways you can start to change your taste buds, and you can start to change what tastes good, because you know what goes into your body and into your brain is what you need to actually concentrate on.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree with that as well. I think our brain is really capable of adapting to situations.
Yeah.
Just the same way when you start taking smoothies and juices, they really taste so bad, but over time it becomes like a lifestyle, a daily thing for sure. Plus, I also like what Pendo said. You can look for different ways to prepare food, especially for kids, just so that they can also enjoy those foods. Kefa, yes.
Yeah. Now, just to add something, as they have said, taste is acquired. But I know one of the challenges people have nowadays is actually cravings. And there's a difference between cravings and appetite. Appetite is the desire for food, but craving is an intense desire for a specific food. And most people will crave for foods that are known to have a lot of sugar or a lot of saturated fats. And that is why those foods actually taste good. But remember, the taste is acquired. And the reason is why we eat food is for us to get the nutrients. I mean, we should always remember that.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing the sugar again into this conversation. Previously, as you said, sugar is just evil. And I had thought about something, but I forgot. And I think as we're having this conversation, it's important for us to bring into this conversation everything that is sugary, not just sugar itself. For example, in my case, I do not take sugar at all. Even in my coffee, I don't take sugar, but I really love sugary things. All right, we are winding this conversation up. We are already 1 hour in. Thank you guys for joining us via the webinar. Thank you everybody who joined us via Facebook. Please keep commenting. We will interact with you. I'll ask the panelists to also be able to answer some of your questions when you go to the Facebook pages where we will leave the recording. I would like to ask my fellow panelists to give a last word in regards to this conversation. Any last remarks? We start from Stacey. Any last remarks?
Yes. What I think this particular session should make us all understand is that mental health and nutrition are very, 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 very close knit. Nutrition plays a very big role in mental health, and mental health plays a very big role in your nutritional status. So let us observe everything that has been said here. Let us look for various ways to get clean and healthy foods into our bodies, not only for now, but also, long term, okay? And I should let you know that you are in control of what you eat. You're in control of what you put inside your body, and you're in control of your mental health at the end of the day. So and thank you so much, Gadani, for creating such a beautiful forum. I hope we can be able to talk about this, because I don't think we have exhausted everything. So thank you.
No, I think there's so much more that we could learn. Angie, Pendo, Kefa, last words.
Just that sugar is evil. Drop sugar. Just drop sugar. Don't eat sugar.
Yeah.
And that's, don't eat sugar. I don't also, when I have coffee, when I have tea, whatever I have, I also don't eat sugar. If I do try to bake something, I have a high grade stevia that I'm using. My kids are starting to eat stevia. All sorts of things. There's different options out there. There's ways to sweeten things that your taste buds can get used to. Sugar really doesn't help our brain. And I have to go because I have another call and people who are on me. But I really have enjoyed this, and thank you so much. And read The Angel and the Assassin. The Angel.
All right. Thank you so much, Angie, for your contribution. We are really different just being in this panel with you. Pendo, bye.
Yeah, I think This was a very, very interesting conversation. I wasn't here from the beginning, but from where I picked up, I think it's a very crucial topic to have been discussed today, especially with the COVID situation. People are indulging in a lot of unhealthy food. So I think this is a very important topic. Also, allow me to mention that we are going to be doing videos on sample foods that can be prepared that are within the Mind Diet guidelines. We're going to look into like a starter, a main dish, and a dessert that is within the guidelines. So I think that will be good to give our viewers an example of dishes that are within the guidelines but still palatable. So yeah, I think you can follow up with the YouTube account. You're going to be preparing some content for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Kefa?
Yeah, my final words. I know we are surrounded by fast foods, but we should always remember that what happens around us affects us by 10%, 90% is determined by how you react. And to me, that's a very encouraging statement, because it simply means that we are not victims of our circumstances, but the masters of our destiny. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining. My name is Gadoni Mbogwa. I have really loved this conversation. And for me, one of the biggest misconceptions I have heard out there is that eating a nutritious diet is expensive. You guys have heard that? That it's too expensive. And my challenge to you, if you genuinely think that it is expensive to get nutrition into your body, try treating the illness. Then you will see where it comes in. So there is a way, what my panelists have said, let's take control of what we decide to consume, and let's guard our greatest asset, which is our mind and our brain. Thank you guys. I wish you a very, very good evening, and I wish you a good end of the week, and join us next week as we talk about something that is very interesting: sex and mental health. Panelists, you can also join us if you would like. Bye-bye, people.
Bye.
Oh, happy dance. Sorry, panelists, you have to do a happy dance. Kefa, KLB.
Oh,
Kefa.
do it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Every time you do that,
Thank
you will
so
find yourself smiling. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you so much too.
All right. Let's end the live on Facebook. Okay, the live is done on Facebook. So how are you guys feeling? How was the conversation?
Amazing. I'm very shocked at the possibilities that are out there. I was shocked to learn that there's actually right now they're offering research in nutrition psychiatry, which is, it shows that they're really taking psychiatry and mental health very, very seriously, and it's something that we should actually take up here in Kenya and teach people. I'm sure, like I think they mentioned every one in 8 Kenyan adults have actually gone through a particular set of events through mental illness, which is wow. I didn't know that.
Imagine. Actually, you're completely right, Stacey, because even for us at the hospital, like food and diet for the patient is like the biggest investment that we have, from the kitchen to the staff. And even that's why Pendo is saying that they are working with the chef to actually see, can we actually prepare these meals and record them, so that, because it means we are also using locally available stuff, so that people don't hear these big words and think, oh no, that belongs to other people. No, we can be able to do this within our own capacity. Yeah. And I'm really gonna do research about salt and mania. Oh Lord, I didn't know.
Please do.
Just when I think I'm knowledgeable, boom, zero.
Something comes up.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Kefa, I know you are late, but we still learned a lot from you.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I'm also happy to be part of the panel. And this is really good because it's a good way of ensuring that we're able to, empower the general public with the right information. Because that's actually what is lacking nowadays. There's so much information, but it's not easy to get the right information. So thank you so much for organizing this, and continue doing this because people need information. So thank you.
Thank you. We will share the recording with you individually, but also upload it both on our YouTube and Facebook pages. All right? Kendall?
Yes, Gathani.
Okay.
It was an interesting one. Very interesting.
All right. Sawa people. Bye. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
All right.